Hello, welcome to the session on hedging interest rate risk of the banking book. And in this video, I would like to focus, as per your request, to give you the range of tools which I use to hedge prepayment risk. Because prepayment risk is actually one of the most important behavioral aspects on the asset side, and behavioralization of prepayments is the must in both interest rate risk and liquidity risk management. So from interest rate risk perspective and hedge accounting as well, but on this I will dwell a bit more later. We have, let's provide the definition first, and then I will show 3 tools which you can use in order to hedge the prepayment. First of all, prepayments can be divided in 2 types. The first type is financial prepayment, which is driven by rational decision of the customer, driven by the rate differential. Rate differential in terms of the external market rate, and which is the driver of the pricing of the loan, because of course for the long term assets like mortgages, the benchmark would be the 5-year, 6-year, 7-year swap rate. And of course, the rate moving down or moving up change the price of the product. So this is the sensitivity of the customer to these changes. So it's her willingness to early repay is driven by how much is the benefit. What is the benefit of early repayment of the loan today and new rate, reinvestment rate of the, the part, the new rate, the part of the, because we still want to have the product. So under financial prepayment, you will repay the loan, but then you will you need to draw down the new loan the new mortgage in order to have the money to repay the first one. So in this situation, you will have still the mortgage, but the mortgage will be at the potentially lower cost because the rates dropped. So the phenomena of prepayment, especially financial prepayment, is very highly rate dependent. So the higher the differential between the price of the loan you fixed at the origination and the benchmark rate, which is underlying swap rate, is the driver which moves the prepayment. So as I said, it's based on the financial awareness of the customers and, the potential reinvestment cost of the new loan, which the new market, prevailing market condition. Okay, but there is another also prepayment, which is known as structural prepayment. And this is mainly driven by the fact that, some customers are just, moving geographically to another place, they change geographics, and they are divorcing, they're inheriting amount of money so they can early repay the loan or the debt. There are different spectrum of reasons which are not dependent on the external market condition, but they are like embedded always in the balance sheet. This is why structural, because they are always embedded, they will be always there. They do not depend on the situation in the external market, but rather on the personal situation of the customer. And this one could be modeled using the database and based on the historical historical analysis, database, and so on. Meanwhile, as we know, the financial prepayment cannot be driven by historical analysis, but they must be driven by this credit differential. So you build different models like logistic regression. So there's different methodological approach for those two types of prepayment. Okay, let's move towards hedging. Given that financial prepayment affect the balance sheet, and especially the fixed rate loan, Treasury, once we are originating the fixed rate loan, Treasury majority of this product is hedged. Is hedged through payer swaps. So the swap where we are paying the fixed rate and receiving floating, because in this way we are offsetting the long asset position with this interest rate swap, which is underlying the position. And overall, in the same way, you are transforming the fixed rate loan into the floating. Yeah, because you have this floating rate on the swap. However, the thing here is that majority of these swaps are in the hedging relationship with the loan, which is known under hedge accounting. So you are using the macro hedging quite often here, macro hedging methodology, because you are hedging the portfolio of assets rather than each asset individually. This is why we are saying macro hedging. And they are obviously, they have been set up at the certain conditions, certain rate level, and they are, producing the collateral requirement, because these are swaps, and they are producing also the mark to market. So you will get the impact in terms of the mark to market on, not on the P&L, if they are in the hedging relationship, of course, then you don't have any P&L impact, of course. But they are, fluctuating. The mark to market of the swap fluctuates. So when the loan repays, the asset offsetting the payer is disappearing. So it disappears. So you don't have any position on the asset side. So first of all, you are losing the hedge accounting relationship. So now the P&L, now this movement, mark to market movements are on the P&L. So you see the P&L impact, you see the P&L volatility. So for sure, you need to unwind the swap, or you need to reallocate it back to the new assets, or you need to cancel it. So they are one of the tools which is automatically to protect you against this unwind on the swap. And imagine you unwinding the swap at the adverse condition and the asset repaid, so you don't have asset disappeared. So basically you don't have this offsetting fixed rate asset position. So only liability in terms of the payer leg of the swap is there. And if it's negative mark to market, yeah, you have the hit on the P&L. So now what is the hedging strategy? The payer swap could be acquired in the following way. Or you can acquire it plain vanilla. So you have only the payer swap and you have the risk if there is prepayment, because we are always hedging on the behavioral basis. So if there is the repayment rate, which is on the top what you have modeled, so basically you start being misaligned in terms of the asset and liabilities, you will need to cancel the portion of those swaps. And you can do it entering into the payer swap, which has automatically the swaption overlayer embedded. So you will be buying swap with the receiver swaption on the top of this payer swap. So the receiver swaption will be only executed because this is the option, interest rate option. So will be only executed when there is the situation which is profitable for you to execute it, which is beneficial for you to execute it. Otherwise, you won't execute it. So this is the rational, underlying of the swaptions, each swaption. So you can execute, but you also you are not obliged to execute if you are obviously you acquire the option, because if you sell the option, then it's different way around. So basically you will face the potential negative payoff, and it could be infinitive theoretically, but let's not dwell too much on the swaption themselves. Maybe I can record video on the swaption mechanics of swaption itself. But here, just imagine you have this payer swap with the receiver swaption overlayer. So if there is the situation where you want to cancel the swap and you are setting up the certain strike, so for example, we assume that at the certain rate you will see the prepayment event. So then at this situation you will need to cancel the payer swap. How can you cancel it? Entering into exactly the same offsetting position. So you will be having receiver swap, because swaption is the option on the swap. When we say receiver swaption, we will be buying the receiver swap. When we are payer swaption, we will be buying the payer swap. So receiver, we will be receiving fixed and paying floating. So imagine that you execute your swaption, receiver swaption, at this certain condition, and you will be offsetting payer swap with the receiver swap at exactly the same conditions. So because you can set up the conditions in the way that you will be offsetting, so you don't have any impact. You don't have any P&L impact, and eventually at the central clearing counterparty, those swaps will be compressed, so disappears. So you don't have this payer swap because it was cancelled by receiver swap, and the receiver swap was acquired by the receiver swaption through the receiver swaption, which you have executed. And you have executed because you had the beneficial conditions in the market where this swaption is worth to be executed. But this is only the first situation. You can also hedge the prepayment risk through the floor overlayer. So we know that at a certain level of rates, below certain level of rates, floor will give you the payoff. So if you have the floor of 1%, if the rates move down below 1%, you will get the payoff. So you will be compensated by the counterparty with which you went into the relationship, from which you acquire the interest rate floor. You will be having exactly the difference between strike at the prevailing rate when the floor is executed. So the lower rates move down, the higher benefit is. So imagine there is the certain level, certain floor, which is the strike of this IRO, interest rate option. When the rates move down, you will be getting additional amount of, you will be getting the payoff, positive payoff. And this payoff basically if you want to unwind the swap at any of these points, you will offset the potential loss on the swap with this interest rate floor, because you have the payoff on the floor, and if you have to unwind the swap, you have negative mark to market. So you have to, of course, if you want to unwind it, you have to pay. You have to pay the front cost to the counterparty, because you're unwinding it at the higher rate in comparison to the prevailing rate in the market. The rates in the market are lower. So there is negative mark to market of the swap. So if you want to unwind it, you need to pay upfront costs on the swap. So this is non-breakage cost of the swap. So you will be paying the breakage cost on the swap, but from the other side, you have the payoff on the floor, which is offsetting your negative payment on the swap, on payer swap. So this is the second option. The option number 3 is quite commonly used in UK, which is balance guaranteed swaps. So here you are entering into the relationship with the counterparty where they manage the prepayment risk for you. However, so those swaps are changing, the notional of the swaps is changing with the new prepayment assumptions. So we are transferring the prepayment risk to the counterparty, and the counterparty is pricing the hedge use its own prepayment assumption. So basically you are transferring the risk to the counterparty, but then of course the counterparty is pricing for you this balance guaranteed swaps, because they will be changing, the counterparty will be managing the portfolio for you through those swaps. So it is expected to be, those swaps are expected to be much more expensive in comparison to the plain vanilla payer swaps, because this is dynamically managed portfolio where you see automatically those, in the system that the counterparty, if you set up the system for balance guaranteed swaps, you are downloading the data, the loan data, and then the counterparty is managing the portfolio according to their own prepayment assumption. So you see this swaps portfolio, which is adjusted by their own assumption, prepayment assumption. So you don't bear the risk because you paid the cost of the management of the prepayment risk to the counterparty through the higher rate on those balance guaranteed swaps. However, each of these option has its own pros and cons. And I am going to show you what is the potential cost of entering into this position. So that's all for this video, and thank you so much for the attention, and I invite you to the next video.